everyone, welcome to this video, composite demand. So I'm going to be using a simple example and explanation of composite demand. So composite demand, known as composite demand, is when we have a good that has got multiple uses. Let's look at crude oil, for example. It's used for military use. It's also used for energy use. So crude oil, as you know, we talk about the products that are going to be produced with crude oil. We are talking about jet fuel, we are talking about petrol, we are talking about diesel. But in this case, we want to use the USA and the Iran conflict. So in this case, we are looking at the USA economy. So what's going to happen is that there's now much more demand for military use from that crude oil. They need to use much of the oil to do military use. So what's going to happen is that there's going to be more demand for oil to use for military use in the USA in the Iran conflict. So we talk about supply and demand. This is our equilibrium. So because of the USA and the Iran war, we're going to see demand for military use for the use of that crude oil shifting to the right, like this, right? And you're going to see the increase in the quantity and also increase in the price of the crude oil that is being used for military use. So what happens is that we talk about oil having multiple uses, right? So we are going to see much more oil being devoted to the use of military use, then less oil available to use for energy uses. So that's what we mean by oil having multiple uses, being also in composite demand. They're supposed to be used at the same time, but because they've channeled the supply of oil towards more military use because of the USA and the Iran conflict. So what happens in the diagram for energy use? There's going to be less oil to be used to produce petrol, diesel for energy use, right? So what's going to happen with this diagram is that we draw it like this: supply and demand. Then you put our equilibrium where supply meets demand, call that Q1, call that P1. So there's going to be less input of the oil here because there's going to be less supply of the oil on this side for energy use because they're using much of it for military use, whereby they are using it for jet fuel to travel to Iran to do the Strait of Hormuz, all those things, right? So what's going to happen here? We're going to see supply shifting to the left for the use of oil for energy use. So we are going to see quantity falling from P1 to Q2, then also the price level increasing from P1 to P2. So you see what is happening here. We are also going to see that that's why the reason why the prices of fuel products rising in USA and other all around the rest of the world because of this relationship that is happening in the USA and the Iran conflict. So this is what is happening to the US economy. That's why prices are rising and inflation rising also at the same time. This is what is happening. This is composite demand where one good has got multiple uses. In this case, we can use oil for military use. You can use it for energy use. So whichever way you do, when there's a conflict, when you see demand for the other one rising for the usage that is being used, it's going to affect the supply of the other because the supply is finite, which means it's scarce, it can be depleted. So this is why we end up having higher prices. Thank you.